Hi, how are you? Welcome to the Learning Up podcast. I'm Daniel Marcos, your host, and I'm here with a really, really good friend, Peter Lauder. Hey, Peter, how are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm really, really happy to be here with you.
Yeah. Hey, let me just give a quick preview. So Peter and I know each other almost 20 years ago. We went to a program in MIT from Inc. Magazine, MIT, and EO called Birthing of Giants. And then we've been in the graduation program called Gathering of Titans for last 19 years total. So every year we meet in MIT for 19 years. We learn together, we grow together, and it's just been a pleasure to meet Peter. And Peter was in headhunting for over 20 years. He had his own firm called Wall Street Services, where we help hire people for Wall Street companies, mostly in the financial industry. And then he founded Spartoy Group for the last 3 years in his career, until I started hearing that he was very unhappy that hiring is broken. So he started with that. And guys, learning up is all about growing companies. But if it doesn't start if you have a really bad team. So you need to start hiring the right team to then be able to give them learning, grow your team, so your team helps you grow your company. And that's exactly why we're here. So Peter, why do you think hiring is broken?
Well, I would actually assert that it is almost impossible for people to gather the teams that they need with the current methods of recruiting.
Why?
Um,
So you're an
so,
expert on recruiting. Tell us
yeah,
what is the typical mistakes company do? Why is it broken?
so recruiting is broken, and there's one very simple reason, and it manifests in four different areas. But the main reason why recruiting is broken is that we apply this really simple methodology of buying stuff to the immensely complex process of engaging with other human beings. And this is really critical. We spend more time with our coworkers than we do with our families frequently, right? But I don't know about you, but I did not choose my spouse based on 2 to 3 45-minute conversations. And then, yeah, yeah. So the way in which we go about it is a complete aberration when it comes to every other area of our life, and on both sides, how we find people, but also how people find us. If you think about, as much as you love what you're doing, when you were a kid, this is not what you thought you would be doing, right? And so, but it's through this process of discovery that we find where we're supposed to be. But yet, the only people that we talk to are people who are looking for our job, the specific job that we're offering in that specific moment. Yeah, that alone doesn't make sense.
What's the right way? Um,
Well,
how to
let's
fix
talk
it,
a little bit about how this brokenness manifests. So I think
please?
first and foremost, we start looking for people after we realize we need them, right?
We
And
need it.
so,
We need it for yesterday.
yes, right, we got to hire tomorrow. And this is also baffling because we all know turnover happens, right? Yeah. And we have budgets that say we need to hire, but yet we are always caught surprised when we need to hire. And because we're in a rush, we're right out of the gate. We're motivated buyers, right? We need to hire. There's work isn't getting done. We're doing too much work because of it. Yeah, someone has left. Yeah, it is very stressful. There's the UPS guy. And two, it also means because we start the process after we realize we need them, we need to hire. We're only talking to people who are, as I mentioned, looking for our exact job in that exact moment. These are not the best people to hire, and it's also
Most
such
likely
a
they're not.
small percentage of the available market. And it's also impossible for us to get good people. So the average job search takes about 38 days. And that's including, fry cooks at McDonald's to, mixed in with a CEO search that takes 6 months. So we're only able to talk to this very, very small percentage of the market. And it's the wrong percentage, right? Those people, it takes 38 days for a job search. The best people who are on the market for only 10 days. Because there's such a scarcity of good people
The
who are looking.
probability of you getting the right person whenever you need it, you have a very, very, very short, difficult window to catch. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the first reason. The second reason is we're not clear on what we're looking for. And so I think, and that comes across in a couple ways, is one, how many times have people recycled their last job description? Right now, if I miss a week of studying the AI developments, a week, I'm almost impossibly behind. And this is the world we live in. So if you're using a job description from 3 years ago, not going to happen. The job description you write today is only going to last you at least 6 months. So we're not clear on what we're looking for, but really what makes someone successful in an organization is not their skills, but it's their match with the culture. Skills are important, but they're only a slice of the pie and not the biggest piece. And so we don't know what our culture is, so we can't really look for it. And even if it's in front of us, which is the third reason, we can't identify it if it's right in front of us. And then finally, and this is as a recruiter, hard to, a former recruiter, easier to say, but as a recruiter, what drove me out is we outsource the job to people who do not understand our soul. And I include external recruiters as well as internal recruiters. Unless your recruiters are embedded with your group and they're involved in the day-to-day, then maybe they have a shot. But otherwise, they have no idea what they're talking about.
They don't. A headhunter you've never met and said, I need to hire someone, and you kind of tell them the position. They interview you. They write a job scorecard or job position. They post it, and they have no idea of your culture, how you do things, how disciplined you are or undisciplined you are, or the core values, all that.
Well, not only that, and I have a childhood friend who's a managing director at BlackRock, and he's a data scientist and an analyst. And he was invited by Human Resources to a graduate career fair. And he met this young man and he was like, oh, this is our guy. I'm sure of it. And the HR folks said, but he doesn't have any of the qualifications. And Mario was like, yes, he does. He just doesn't have the words that you're looking for on the resume. And Mario got his PhD in astrophysics. He was studying how stars were made, and he did a lot of programming, a lot of data analytics with that he was able to apply. And because he had that experience, he had a wider perspective of who is capable of doing the job, something a recruiter will never have.
So how do you fix it? Today you hire someone. How can you get that hiring person, or do you need to have a full-time HR person that is an expert on hiring to the hire? You still do hiring an outsource, and how do you do it right? How do you get someone to really understand your culture and who you are to be able to get the right candidate, and how to get the timing right? Because as you mentioned, it's very difficult to get the timing right. Right.
You cannot interview people for a job that you don't have open. No one's going to want to do that. So I think when it comes to looking at getting somebody else to do the work for us, we have to think about what is it that we're asking other people to do. And it is exclusively building a pipeline of candidates. That is when you go to a recruiter, it's not like they're finding the one person, because you are doing that. They are finding the 10 people for you to interview and then for you to choose the one. So what you're looking for is someone to get you those 10 people. And I assert that companies are totally capable of finding their own people. It's just the currency they use to attract people need to change. So in a job, the currency we use to attract people to a job is the job opening. And the problem is that is only interesting to about 10 to 15% of the people at any given time. Whereas the vast majority, 86% of the most qualified people are working and not looking. And they're also not taking calls from recruiters, and they're definitely not looking at job descriptions. But it doesn't mean that they don't want a new job. And that's the interesting part. What they don't want is to go through the process of finding a job, right? And that's a very, very important distinction. And I think all of us, you and I, even though we're entrepreneurs, there is a role out there, that if someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, do you want this role? I would take it in a second. Incidentally, it's tugboat captain is my dream job. And if I had a chance to do that, I would do that immediately. But that's probably not going to happen. But my point is everyone has something that meets their heart desire. And in fact, the research is 90% of all workers would interview for a job with a company that they really admired. So there is great interest. And so I think the thing we have to look at is, what is the currency we use to attract people? And that the open job isn't it. And what is it? And what I assert, that it's culture. It is our purpose and values. And when we and our employees, most importantly, tell the stories that emanate from culture and values on places like LinkedIn or other social media, what happens is that people who share those values are attracted and engaged with those messages. And that is your start. And using social selling techniques, it is actually very easy to bring those that instances of engagement to relationships, to selectively look, if I do 3 or 4 posts a week, at who is engaging with those posts, and then who might be, out of that engagement, possibilities to hire. And then I change the direction or the relationship of recruiters. So now recruiters are working with line employees who are telling these stories online to identify those people and to work together to nurture that relationship from engagement to a conversation. And that conversation is presented as a networking conversation, and it should be a networking conversation, but during which we look, is this person I'm talking to, are they likely to share the culture that we have and that we value? Are they likely to have the skills and attitude we need to be successful? And most importantly, what do they want to accomplish in their career? So that when it's time to hire, to find, instead of finding 150 people to send their resume who just happen to be looking for our job in this specific moment, and then do a terrible job of sifting through those resumes. And we do a terrible job of doing that. Rather than doing that awful, painful process that so frequently fails. So I saw a statistic, I'm not sure I believe it, but 30% of applicants leave their jobs, or new hires leave their jobs within the first 3 months because of cultural mismatch. It was a statistic from a study in 2018, but it bodes well with my own experience. And when I talk to CEOs and COOs, they sheepishly say that about 40% of the people they hire don't work out. So it makes sense.
It's around there. It should be around there.
So that is, what other area in life would we accept a 60% success rate? It's just absurd. If your airline was late or lost your bag 60% of the time, you would never fly that airline. Never. But yet we continue to do this process. So instead of that horrible process, why don't we start with a smaller group of people who know us, who we know are likely to share our cultural values, are likely to have the skills we're looking for. And we have, instead of trying to get that massive amount of people to send their resume, just 10 conversations. Hey, Daniel, you and I have been talking for a while. We like each other, and we're having a lot of fun speaking, and we believe the same things. And I know that you want to do this really cool thing with your career. And it just so happens at my company, we have an opening right now, and I think we can help get you there faster. I don't know. Should we have a conversation about it? It will have a very different reaction. Think about the last position you hired. How many people you interviewed that were a complete waste of time? Ooh. It's a significant number. The amount of waste that we do with this process is uproarious. And it is all directed at the wrong people. And I'm not saying that good people are not on the market. There's just not a lot of them. Yeah.
So let's talk about culture and storytelling. And by the way, you're an expert storyteller.
Thank you.
I did to some shows with you, and you're an amazing storyteller. So, but let's go back to how to tell the story right, how to get your culture right, and tell the story right of your culture, so people will be excited to want to work with you.
Yeah, so I think it starts with purpose and values. Purpose, why it is that we exist as an organization and make the decisions that we do. And I think that's a difficult thing. I think people are more prone to create a heartfelt mission statement what we do and or where we're going and how we intend to get there, as opposed to why we're going. And so it's a difficult process and takes a lot of introspection. And how I go about that is really looking at what are the stories that the organization tells, people within the organization tell that they're most proud of. And that usually starts off with accomplishments, which is a great place to start. But then we go deeper into what are the moments where we felt most connected with our work and that we were doing the best work. And for me, one of those moments is when in my recruiting days, there was a guy I was placing with a consultancy on a project at a very large investment bank. He's someone that I had worked with at that point, probably at least 10 years. I placed him at least 6 times in that 10-year place on a project basis. We were very, very close. I knew he was very good, but I've done at least 5 or 6 background checks on him. Everything was fine. But this one bank did a very aggressive background check and found a sealed arrest record from when he was in college. Oh. Now, in order for arrest record to be sealed, the case must have been thrown out of court. So it is by very nature a non-starter. However, it was discovered. And this guy was furious. He was absolutely furious. And he said, I am not going to take this job. Just if they're going to be this aggressive and this inappropriate, I'm going to leave. And I understood that. And I also understood that this was a Black man who went to college at Harvard in Boston at a time where Black men did not get a fair shake. And it was well before that I had the language to be able to speak to that directly. Yeah. But I knew that that was the issue. And I could tell by how upset he was by it. And it was, for me, the ability to sit with him. And I knew that this was this was a cat that was out of the bag. It was never going back in. And if he didn't deal with it now, it would come up again on the next job and the next job and the next job. And so I was able to sit with him and listen to his anger and not try and argue with it, to empathize with him. And then when that had gone through, now I had another candidate in the wings. I did not need to do that. But at the end of that, he was able to see that he needed to drive to Boston and get the records that this organization was carrying. And so this was 10 years ago. I had a conversation with him this summer. He was taking a director role at Citibank. And as he was going through the background check process, he said, well, I have my packet that I got 10 years ago that he's needed at every job he's taken since then.
So whenever it comes up, he comes with his package and proves that he was thrown over and all that.
But it was, for me, it was that moment I was very proud of that moment because it was an area of human connection, which was a huge part of our purpose statement and my personal purpose statement. So what I do is I dig deep and I get those understandings. And that's how I help uncover a company's purpose. And then from there, what are the values that are needed to get there? For each of those devices, my True Bearing, my company's purpose is that we are all of us woven together by the threads of our stories. Tell yours well and connect with those who matter most. And I believe that we are all deeply and profoundly connected. And the values of my company lead up to that, which allow me to do that. But there are things I believe about the importance of connection, the importance of listening to people, the importance of flattening hierarchy. There's all these things that I believe as a result of my purpose. So those are the things that I speak about online. And the type of clients that I'm looking to attract and the type of employees that I will be looking to attract will resonate with those things and they will engage with those. And so when I see someone who I want to talk to, engaging with my post, I connect with them and then I look to keep engaging with them to the point that I recognize, oh, they recognize me, they remember me, they are also, we have some sort of conversation. I immediately say, hey, let's chat. We have a brief 15, 20-minute conversation, in which I'm able to tell, oh, this is a person how I can work with or not. Yeah.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So how do you recommend companies start doing it today? What do you recommend? What are the first steps to get hiring right?
So I think first and foremost, getting clarity on their purpose and values. And second, are those things, are they plaques on the wall, or are they alive within the organization? And I think some of the tests that they can look at is when the leaders make a mistake, or say something or do something, and which we all do as leaders, that are contrary to our values and purpose, do the employees say, or are they silent? And that's a great test. And if they say something, then you know your purpose and values are alive. If not, you have to do some work to make them the case. But if they are alive, then there should be a volunteer group of employees, who care enough about the organization, because employees want good people to work with. That's for sure. Yeah.
Nothing attracts more A players than other A players.
Exactly. And so there should be a group, and if you can get 5% of your company, 10% of your company to volunteer to be trained in the tactics of social selling and commit to posting about those narrative themes that come from purpose and values 3 to 5 times a week. And getting the support of your marketing to do that. Then that will begin. That was all you need. And if it's a large company and you have 50 people doing this, then the power of 50 people working together to promote each other's posts will feed the LinkedIn algorithm in such a way that will really outsize the results, and you'll start to get an increasingly rapidly growing audience for that group of people.
But you said this group of people are going to post online. They are the ones starting to having conversations and all that with the community. So whenever there's a position, they will immediately think, hey, I have one person I've been talking to that aligns with us.
The goal is, and what I suggest people do is, after they've been doing this, they look to have 2 conversations a week with new people. That they're just engaging, and they're
building
and
that
they're having these
bench of team members.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So think about it. If a percentage of your employees, maybe 5 people, did this and had 2 conversations a week, what would happen? You've got 5 people. That is 1,000 people in your network that you've gone through. Out of that 1,000 people, you could hire more people than you would ever need to, in your company's existence. And it's not, but the benefits on the other side of that are huge. So marketing is about experimenting. And usually what happens is we hire an expert outside of the organization to do the experimenting. And what are they experimenting on? Well, it's the stuff they already know how to do, the stuff they did for the last client. And I'm not saying we don't need that. And I'm not saying that that's not relevant. It is. But if you have that, and then you also have, 10% of your company, 5% of your company was also doing that experiment, working with your marketing to look at, whoa, look what Jack did. Oh my God, Jill just did something and it went crazy. How can we all do that? What can we learn from that for our corporate marketing on the other side? This is a very, very, very powerful tool, but you're also dramatically increasing the number of people who are talking about your company online at any given moment, which has huge benefits. So it makes your marketing efforts so much more effective because it's increasing their reach and it's increasing their believability. So people are 3 times more likely to believe individual posts than they are corporate posts. And you and I both know.
Posts. So if I go to LinkedIn and post under Daniel Marcus, not Growth Institute. Interesting. Okay.
Yep. Growth Institute does a post. We view it as advertising. You do as a post. We use it as personal testimonial. It's a very, very different reaction. Yeah.
That's a very powerful thought there. Okay. Yeah. So you start getting this team, posting in social media, having conversations. Now you have 1,000 people they've talked to. How do you keep that bench alive and engaged? And how do you work with them for them to be ready and open to have a conversation when you need them?
Right. So I think the trick is so in those conversations, there's 3 things we need to discover. 1, are they a match from a skill set? 2, are they a match culturally? I would say culture is more important than the skill set, but that's me. And I'm not a doctor, nor am I hiring doctors. So, and then 3, what do they want to accomplish in their career? And I think particularly from where you're starting from a place of creating posts about purpose and culture. So if people are engaging with that, chances are they're going to be aligned with those things. They're going to have some kind of connection with it. And then, so once you know that, then you're continuing to post, you're continuing to engage. They're continuing to engage with your posts. Yeah. And particularly with the social selling methodology, you're engaging with their posts as well. So this is a relationship that will continue online for quite some time. And so you already are, the work you're doing is already set up with them. But once you know them, then you can bring them into more corporate marketing programs, more specific. Hey, this is an article that we just released. I think it was based on what you're interested. You might be interested. There's all sorts of things that people can do to stay in touch with them. And it's not until you have a need that you need to mention a candidacy. And if you have that conversation with 10 people, at least 5 of them will want to interview, and the other 5 will recommend other people, most likely, right?
Like
if a stranger comes,
someone like them. Yeah.
If a stranger comes to you and says, "Hey, do you have a recommendation?" You say no, right? But if a good friend says, "Hey, I'd love to hire you for this," and you say, "Well, I'm not looking, but you should talk to this person."
Yeah.
So you'll end up with a really nice pool of good candidates from that point. And all those candidates, because you might select someone else, but those candidates are still viable candidates because they still have so out of that 10 people, 3 of them will be good candidates that you can actually look to hire later on. So you'll have a vastly different experience, and people will have a vastly different experience of your company. So
that's very cool. All right. So Peter, before we go to the last question, if someone wants to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you? How can they find you?
My website is truebearing.work. My LinkedIn, Peter Lafter. I'm a pretty aggressive content producer, so I would love to have people follow me. And on LinkedIn, Peter Lafter is there's not many of us out there. Yeah.
If you could put a billboard to tell everyone a message, you live in New York, you want to put a billboard in New York, what would you tell people?
That recruiting is culture, and culture is all about connection. It really is. And, I think, when our workplaces, when we really have a sense of trust and belonging in our workplaces, we will go through brick walls for our coworkers. And I think that this is, and I think for so long we've had this work-life balance as if they're two separate things. But no, we're really moving in a time where the demand is that we integrate our passions with our work and with the work we do outside of our life. And this is an integrated, and so it's a transformational time and a great opportunity for so many customers, but so many companies.
Very cool. Yeah. All right. Peter, as always, great pleasure talking to you. Look forward to connect again.
Looking forward to it.